So hey friends, welcome to this week's video. We are gonna go over the Nura sound company and a lot of their offerings from a wireless perspective. We've done their phones in the past, their loops in the past, and the Trues as well. So definitely check out those reviews because it'll give you a good understanding of where this company has sort of evolved their product over time, and I'm pretty impressed. But the reason why we want to do this comparison today is because the Nuratrues came out. I did a review on that recently. However, a lot of people were asking about how those go with the Nuraloops. Again, I'm not going to do the Nurabuds because I personally don't like that battery life, and I don't think that those earbuds are as useful just from a day-to-day perspective. But there is some sort of, you know, in the price range, I think the Nuraloops and the Nuratrues are very, very similar in the sense that they could meet the same budget, same needs, and things like that, despite being different sort of in terms of their overall form factor. So the Nuraloops, if you're not initiated, definitely check out my video. I think I shot like 3 videos on these guys, and it's just because there was a lot of questions, and they were pretty different from what the general offering was at the time, as well as they have sort of ear hooks that would make it really good for working out, which was important for me at the start of quarantine. But these are basically around the same price range, so I think a lot of people will be thinking about which one to pick. They do have their own sort of benefits based on which one you do pick, so I think that's the reason why we want to go into it today. So starting off, where I usually start with the case, there is no case for this. Well, there is a case. Let me get to it. One sec. Alright. So, the case, it's more of a pouch. It's obviously they don't have a charging case because all the batteries within the unit itself. However, the case is here, or the pouch is here, to let you store auxiliary cables, the headphones themselves, as anything else you might need. So, not normally we talk about, but it is present. So we won't be talking about technological cases for the Nuraloops, but as we get to the Nuratrues, we will. So all in all, the package gives you 24 hours. I think there's 6 in the buds, so that means that you'll have additional 3 charges inside the case to get you through an entire day. So nothing to complain about there. USB-C charging. I don't believe there's any wireless charging on this, but overall, pretty small form factor, easy to pocket. It is a little bit bulbous, so it's not as flat as something like the PI7s or the MW08s. However, it still gets the job done, and it's not too bulbous in your pocket. So overall, the case is good. Again, nothing special about it, but it gets the job done. So from that perspective, we're good. So now we can actually talk about the earbuds themselves, because that's going to be important from fit and overall looks perspective. So as we think about the design here, the Nuraloops take very much, they're kind of just like the old Beats headphones where they focus on the loops to really provide that security. But the thing that I do need to mention here that is unique about these ones is that they do have this sort of dongle in the back. And this dongle is important for 2 different reasons. One, this is how you charge. And the other reason is it also has a 3.5. So you can adapt it to be used with any sort of 3.5 jack. So this is great for, you know, airplanes, or this is good if you have a high quality music source that has a 3.5, or if you want to plug into your computer, you'll have that option. And that's something that the Nuraloops do, or the Nuratrues do not have. But at the same time, because this is the way you charge it, it's super freaking annoying. I personally hate proprietary connectors. I wish this was just like, instead of these magnetic clips here, I wish this was just a USB-C connector, because then I wouldn't have to, like, I don't mind having the little tab in the back, but being able to plug into it rather than having to clip into it is a little bit better, as well as the fact that I don't like having charging cables that are special for like use. Like if I can just carry a USB-C cable and I know it'll work with whatever I need, that's much more preferred than, you know, having that cable, because there's many times when I've had this where I forgot the freaking cable, and, you know, I mean, it does last 16 hours, so I'm not gonna complain, but it got me through a day, maybe 2 days, and then it died. So if I, you know, when I was traveling a lot for work, if I forgot the stupid cable, then I'd be out of music and I'd be like, crap, and it sucks. And luckily I carry over ears and stuff, but I don't want to usually work out with that. So that's the big thing that I don't like about it, is that despite it having that secondary function of the 3.5. Also, the thing to note here is These tips that I have on here are not standard. So again, check the video that I did around analyzing different third-party tips, but the tips provided are silicone, but they are like super shallow and they kind of suck. I think that a lot of people had issues with the fit as a result of the fact that those ear tips were so proprietary, like in terms of shape, as well as they were just so shallow that the earbuds would fly out. So that was in my initial review. I complained about that, and that's the reason why I went into the, into the books and look at what ear tips work for them from a third-party perspective. So for this review, I'm very much talking about this with the Comply True Grips Pro third-party tips, because otherwise it would just not be a comparison at all. I couldn't use these. So that is something to consider too, especially because if you need to get third-party tips, it's gonna be a little bit of addition. So it'll be probably 15-20 bucks extra on top of what you're buying here. But overall, the design is semi-ergonomic. The thing that I do like about these is that they do have special touch sensors that don't not only register taps, but they also register sort of a wheel function, and that really helps out with adding gestures that are intuitive as well as gestures that are responsive. So when we talk about the Nuratrues, I'll tell you why that's important, but I was really hoping that this design was going to be on the Nuratrues, or at least those gestures were available to us. But overall, I think it fits pretty well. If I put this on ear, obviously they stick out, and they're a larger unit, so these are definitely good for working out because no one's gonna notice. But if close to head profile is important to you, these are definitely going to stick out a little bit more. But overall, they're pretty comfortable. They do take a little bit of adjusting, and we'll get more into that when we talk about sort of active fit and things like that. But overall, they're comfortable, but they're present. You know that they're there, and you may find yourself adjusting a bit. But look, I think that's enough as we talk about these ones. Let's talk about the Nuratrues. The Nuratrues are obviously a little bit more slim. We've talked about this. They actually give you foam ear tips in the pack, so I didn't have to buy third parties for these. So that's really cool, and that they actually are the ones I end up using. The silicones, because they're bigger, they actually work. So this one didn't work because they were so shallow. However, these ones are actually big enough where you probably won't have an issue. So if you don't like foam tips, you can definitely probably get away with the silicone tips given to you, but I tend to get better experiences and sound from the foam, so I generally go with that. So not only with the foam, but you also get tips or wings. So do you have a wing or hook option? I picked the wings just because I was a little bit more comfortable, and it was less protruding to me. So if you want super security and you like having that sort of hit inside your ear for that added security, hooks are fine. They were just a little bit pokey to me. So I went with the normal ones and they fit fine. And they keep the headphone kind of small to me. In terms of what they have in terms of controls, they just have a single double tap. Again, it's the same thing with these guys, but they don't have the wheel, or they don't have the dial function, which is sort of a handicap because you don't have access to your volume or dialing in your ANC. You really just have the ability to turn on your ANC or turn on your social mode, which sucks because on the Nuraloops, you can actually dial it in a little bit more. So I can put 50% if I want, or I can put 100%, 75%. These ones is just on or off. So that's something I was missing. In reality, I was hoping when I saw these, I was like, oh, cool. It's going to be exactly like these guys. That would be the hope. But unfortunately, that's not what actually happened. They do seem kind of big in terms of footprint because obviously they're fatter than what people think. But actually, when you put them in ear, they're really close to head. They're low profile. They do take a lot of real estate on the side here, but I think that also makes their controls a little bit more accessible as well as reliable. So that's something that I think that you should consider. I get it. I'll connect to you. But yeah, the controls are super responsive and you never really have to worry about them. Nura's actually done a really good job about that overall. They do need to allow us to have more gestures. And again, the Nuraloops are probably the best implementation of it just because of the fact that they have the dial. But yeah, I think with the Nuraphones, they had to introduce other taps or double taps and stuff like that. And same thing with the Nuratrues. They just need to add more gestures overall so that we have a little bit more control. We don't have to worry about missing out on volume or missing out on track control or missing out on ANC dialing. So I think from a controls perspective, they could improve, but you know, in terms of responsiveness, Nura is great. Like, I never had a mistap. They do a good job about tone so that I know that it's like I'm confirming my double tap and things like that, so that you're never really lost. Things like with the Sonys, like it's cool, it works, but sometimes I just get mistaps, especially with things like the PI7s. I was having issues with their double tap. Like, it was just not always functioning the way I want, and they don't have good accelerate or escalating tones to help me understand if I'm double tapping or triple tapping or single tapping or whatever. So overall, I think from a controls perspective, you won't have any issues with these, either one. However, if I was going to pick, I'd probably pick the Nuraloops from a controls perspective because of the dial. And it's just, I think it's just a little bit more sophisticated in terms of that offering, and it really allows me to just use the headphone rather than having to rely on my phones for certain functions. So that's just something to consider here. But from a sort of controls perspective and, you know, all onboard controls, it's in the Nuraloops. So we did start talking about fit already. Again, out of the box, these things are trash. But if you get the right tips, and you know, in the newer generations, I had these for about a year and a half, but the newer generations might have those tips now. But the ones that I had, the silicone, was just not functioning out. Again, it was fine when I was just walking around, but as I started moving around more, you know, running and things like that, that's when it would slip out. So in my review, you see me do jump roping, and it just literally flies out, and I could shake my head and it'll pop out. So the comply tips definitely help with that. The Nuratrues have those, again, standard. But even though you'd expect that the Nuraloops would actually be better for active fit because of the loops that they have on there, but it's not. And I think it's just because of the weight of it. It's just really big, and it might be because also like this cable in the back has a little bit of weight to it. So as you're jumping around, it might be weighing down, or it might be pulling to the loop, and it might be causing some sort of disturbance in the force, disturbance in your ear, where it just starts pulling it out of your ear. So I did find myself adjusting more with the Nuraloops than I did with the Nuratrues. The Nuratrues are just very, very secure. They sit snug, and that sort of wing really just sits against your ear nice and comfortably, and it just keeps it locked. And then obviously, because they are lighter, they just, you know, over time, they just start blending with your ear, and you're not really worried. They're not as present as those ones. So from a fit perspective, I have to go with the Nuratrues just because they're really, really convenient. I think it fits more people's ear, like really out of the gate, and there's less adjusting needed. For these ones, I think a lot of people, like, just because they are so strangely shaped, like even with the right ear tips, people are adjusting and trying to figure out like what angle to put it at, and like how tight do I put the loops. There's just a lot of nuance and experimentation required with the Nuraloops that just aren't with the Nuratrues. I can just shove these in my ear and they'll figure it out themselves. So from a fit perspective, idle and active, Nuratrues for certain. Microphones. We're gonna have tests for these ones, but overall, this is what I will say before we get into those, is that the Nuratrues and the Nuraloops do perform well from a volume perspective. So people will be able to hear you, people will be able to get you pretty clear, but they do have a sense of a difference in how they render that sound. So I'm going to give you guys samples of both of them here, and you can tell me in the comments what you think, but I think there will be a clear winner by the time you see the end of these tests. So we got the Nuratrues in ear. You guys can tell me how I sound, but from what I heard back on the samples that I did before recording this, these sound slightly robotic. They still bring in your voice clearly. Again, if you're on phone calls, if you are doing conferences up for work, people aren't going to lose you in the static. It's going to be very, very clear. However, I think once you go into looking at some other earbuds, you're going to have something a little bit more natural sounding. These just bring out the clarity and volume that you need for the call. But if you want the quality to be there, that's when we might want to look at the Nuraloops, because those seem to be different. So let's move over to those ones. So moving into the Nuraloops, the microphones are seemingly different here. From what I heard in the recordings, this sounds a lot more natural and a lot more clear through ambient noise and all that sort of stuff. So there's definitely a significant consideration here, especially if you're using these for calls.
but also just in general, when you're thinking about anything with mics, of how it's going to bring in noise and things like that, that also ends up being better because of the quality of these microphones. So if you heard from the Nuratrues, there's a slight difference here. Definitely listen back to the recordings and tell me what you think. But from my perspective, the microphones are quite better and more pleasant to the ear on the Nuraloops than they are on the Nuratrues. But microphone testing aside, let's get into some more sound testing.
So, pretty obvious, but if you disagree, please feel free to tell me in the comments. But let's move on to ANC and ambient noise modes, because those are something that I think Nura does very interestingly as I've used their products. So when I started with their Nura phones, Lord, did that give me like supernatural hearing. I could literally hear everything in the world and conversations way too clear. I felt like people were closer to me than they actually were. So that was just surreal to me. But you know, when I was on my one wheel or running around the city, it's super cool because I know when things are coming. I can tell that there's a car coming, even though it's not close to me. So one, it does give you a sense of security, but it also might give you a little sense of paranoia. You know, if you ever wanted to hear your backpack rustling like probably how Spider-Man hears it, Nuraphone's got some crazy stuff. But what was surprising to me is that they were able to replicate the same thing with the Nuraloops. Like, there's very similar, I wouldn't say they're similar mics because I don't know what the configuration is, but in some of the strength and clarity, the microphones bring in ambient noise very, very well. These were actually some of my favorites to ride around the city in, just because of the fact that I could have that spatial awareness quite solid in. And the fact that you can dial it in is great. Again, like, because it has that dial feature, you can bring in like all of the noise, or I can sap it down a little bit. And it seems a little bit more natural in terms of how they handle it especially when you're playing music. And we'll talk about that when we get to the Nuratrues. But it doesn't like take down your music a ton. It just naturally blends it really, really well, and I like that. From the Nuratrue perspective, it still brings in pretty solid sound. I'm just saying that it's not going to be as superhuman or as, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it brings as much sound in as the Nuraloops or the Nuraphones. It definitely does give more than, let's say, like I was able to pick up more stuff than like the PI7s. But Sony's. I was able, actually, I think I was able to get more ANC out of the Nuraloops and the Sonys as well as a little bit more natural. But these just don't compare to the Nuraloops in terms of that, just because of the fact that it doesn't have that supernatural hearing sensation that I got. And the other thing is I can't dial it in. It's more of a tap on, tap off. I can't put in 50% like I can with those ones. So there just seems to be a slight less sophistication with that feature that I wish that there was there. And again, obviously it's a hardware issue, so they can't introduce the dial. They may be able to put it in the app where I can dial it in, and that'd be a cool firmware update if Nura decides to do that. But it's just not going to be on board of the headphone itself. It would be in the app. But again, not there presently, so I can't, you know, that's a hope. It's not something that I can actually give as a comparison point. As we talk about that though, it's going to kind of go to the ANC as well. To me, I feel like those do a better job of the ANC. And again, that might be just because the microphones are a little bit better. But these are no slouch in themselves. I think that's where the comparison is a little bit closer. Definitely, I can tell that this one blocks out a little bit more than the Nuratrues, but these ones are pretty solid. But when you do that, that's the one thing I forgot to mention, is that when you do ANC or ambient mode with these guys, there's a significant cut in your music from, like, you know, if you're at like 100%, it'll cut your music to like 60 to 50%. And then introduce the music, so it's a little bit less of a blend. You just notice your music going down at a way lower level. So that is something to consider as you're thinking about what that works for you in terms of ambient noise. But from an ANC perspective, they're more closely tied, but the Nuraloops kind of beat it out slightly. But again, sound samples here. You guys can tell me what you think in the comments. All right, so again, hopefully that gives you guys a good sense of which one performs better from an ANC and ambient sound perspective, but let's move on to the actual sound quality itself. I will say that the Nuraloops do have slightly better sound, and I think they just punch a little bit harder, and I'm not sure because of that's the isolation that they can provide or because they have bigger drivers. But they do just seem like they punch harder, they sound a little bit more clear, as well as the fact that I believe they have aptX HD, which allows it to push the quality a little bit more. The codecs on the Trues are, I believe, I want to say that they only have aptX adaptive. Oh, no, they only have aptX, AAC, and SBC. So there's one more codec on the loops that allow you to get a little bit better sound quality out of them, so that might be a contribution to why those do sound better and they do punch with a little bit more clarity. However, again, the Nuratrues are very, 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 very good. They're still, like, as much as there are headphones out there that have LDEC and all this other stuff, like Sony's, the XM4s, like, they're a great option. They've done good jobs about it, but these still beat it out. I'm not gonna lie, like, these sound more fun, and as we talk about the app later, you're gonna be able to see, but these ones sound way better, just in general. Like, they sound more clear, they don't sound muddy in the bass, they sound a little bit more balanced, especially if you use the neutral mode, but you just have more fun listening to these. And with Sony's, it just sounds like it's missing everything, and it's just lacking balance. Like, you know, initially when I started out, I was so amped about the Sony's because I was like, oh, these are so cool, like, these function way better, they look a lot better. But then as I like started comparing it to other headphones, I'm like, wait, the sound's still not there, and the microphones aren't still there. So, like, at $200, I would rather hit these than the Sony's any day. So definitely don't sleep on these, but I will give you guys sound samples again so that you can see the difference between the loops. But again, to me, the loops sound better, but close second in terms of what they offer. So have a listen, let me know. So now we know what you thought about those sound samples in the comments. But usually we talk about the app here, and there's no point because it's the same app. Like, it's the same Nura app. They allow you to change your profile. You can dial in your immersion. You can change your touch controls. The only difference with the Nuraloops is because of that dial feature, it does allow you to dial in your ambient noise a little bit more. And it also has you control those things through the app. So yeah, they're basically the same. The biggest thing that I would hope for, and you know, this is also like a little love letter to Nura, is that please introduce more tap gestures. You know, a triple tap and a hold would be lovely, and that would literally get the gamut of controls that we would need, so we would not need to use our phone. But you know, single and double taps gets us some of it, but you know, ideally we'd have more. The Nuraloops, because of the dial, I don't have to worry about it more because I can dial in ANC and ambient noise, and I can dial in my volume, so it's great. I was just hoping that they would have it on this one. It doesn't though. So double tap and single tap is a little bit limiting. So if they could push anything else in the firmware, that's what I would ask them to do. But otherwise, they're basically the same from a controls perspective, controls and application perspective. Yeah. So if you want to know more about those apps, definitely check out my other reviews. I go in depth on, you know, how you can configure a profile, what those profiles kind of sound like, the use of immersion, some of the volume features that they put in the app as well. But overall, it's basically the same thing. We've already went over controls. Again, the dials are making the loops very, very similar, or very, very superior because of the additional control that you got there. So I don't think we need to go heavily into that because I've stressed that enough throughout this whole review. The last thing I want to talk about is connection, because that's going to be insanely different, surprisingly. So when I first got these, I didn't have that much expectation. I mean, these ones still did really well. So like, I think I got, was it half a foot, or no, that's not regulation, but basically in the basketball court that's near my house, I was able to get basically the full length and come back, and there was no connection issues. And while these ones, I almost got through a whole football field. Regulation, like 73 yards. Like, I have yet to see a headphone do that. I have not tested another headphone that has gotten me 73 yards away from the source and not lose my music. That's freaking insane. Like, I know that Bluetooth 5.0, there's a theoretical distance of 800 feet. But I've never seen a headphone hit that or even get close. But the fact that this is hitting 73 yards, that's amazing to me. And especially, open field. Guys, open field, I get it. There might be some people with a brick house or, you know, walls and all this other crap, interference. That's going to affect your distance. But when I was in open field and I got 73 yards, that blew my freaking brain, and it was amazing. Because especially if you are someone that, you know, does like wide open workouts, you don't want to necessarily have your phone on you. So it's great to have that comfort that I'm never going to have a drop connection. With the loops, the basketball court is pretty commendable. Again, you throw that in the middle at half court, you won't ever have to worry about losing connection while you're shooting around or dribbling around. But what I will say is that the connection feels like it has degraded over time. So this started off quite strong. However, when I tested this about a month ago, I usually keep these around just in case my headphones die. So like, again, like with the PI7s, those things died on me. So I had these ones as backup so that I could, you know, finish my workout. But I think about a month ago is when I've had these, or I used these. I had some apprehensions. I had some connection anxiety because I couldn't get too far away from my phone. I could definitely like still get a solid distance. Like if I was to equate it, it'd probably be like half that street court that I have out there. So like half court I could still get to without disconnecting, but that's a tremendous difference from what it started as. And, you know, I started feeling sense of crackling in terms of the sound, as well as a little bit of drops on one earbud. So I'm not gonna lie, I've thrown these to the ringer. These were like my main driver for workouts and active, or just running around the city because of the ambient noise that it can provide. So I've sweat on these, I've thrown these in my bag, a bunch of stuff that might have contributed to that, but I've definitely seen a degradation in distance and connection over time. And that's something I think you guys should consider, because while I can see that it might happen with these, like even if it got cut in half, it's still better than most headphones. But with these ones, I just feel like the design is the reason why it's happening. Like if we just had wireless earbuds with just these, I think that'd be fine. Like if this was just this, like without this cable, like if this was just a unit, I think there would be better reliability. I do have an inkling that this dongle in the back is the reason for that. Is just because there's another point of failure that can happen here. Again, you sweat on this and there's metal contacts. While it is sweat resistance, like if I was running in the rain, like this would get wet, even if it's under a hood. So like there's just a lot of points of failure with this mechanism here that I think would be resolved if they were just on their own as their own units, and they could be shielded. This cable just seems like it brings in a lot of flux, and I think this is the reason why the connection is getting worse. So in the future, I would either like them to, I don't know, in the future I would just like not want them to make this into a wired set. If they could just make this like the true wireless Beats and just make them standalone units, I think they would be great, and it might improve their reliability. But right now, I would have concerns about how long they last, especially if you are one to run your earbuds through a ringer. But that basically gets through all of the main points in terms of this comparison. So let me think about what I would recommend to you guys. And what I would recommend is hard because I love the Nuraloops. I absolutely do. Like I have no problems with my experience with them, and I don't regret buying them at all. However, if you needed to pick one and you wanted to be wise with your money, and I think that, has a little bit less quirks, I'm definitely going to go with the Nuratrues. And the Nuratrues, while they may not sound as good and their ANC and ambient noise might be like a click or two, not as strong, they are more reliable and less fussy. And I think that just works out. Because again, this cable, people want true wireless out of convenience. They want to be able to charge things. 16 hours will get you through the day, but you got to remember to charge it. You could get probably 2 days with this because of the case. So there's just some convenience things with the Nuratrues that I think a lot of people will appreciate. So as much as I've been glowing about the Nuraloops, these just seem more for everybody. It's just like I can slip these on without having to fidget around with it, and they'll stay in. While these ones, I'm gonna like have to figure out how my fit is, and then like halfway through a workout or in an hour or two, I might have to play and fidget with them. And that really becomes an issue because as you play around with these in ear, like even when I'm just gonna put these in my ear right now, these are gonna click in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. So when I put this, like literally clicked 4 times, and all I'm doing is adjusting these and trying to sit these tighter into my ear, but it's activating the dials, or it's activating the taps and stuff like that. So it's gonna be a little bit annoying, especially like people want to one ear their stuff. I do this all the time. So like I'll be like talking to somebody and this is just touching my skin and starting to move tracks back and forth. Oh, it's the worst. So from a convenience perspective and just everything else, like while those do punch better in terms of quality and a lot of different things, I would just say the Nuratrues are just gonna be what you can use every day without anything, without much thought, without much hassle. You just throw them in your ear. You can one ear it pretty simply. Keep the other one in the earbud to charge it. Just talk to somebody, do like work so you can still hear some white noise in the background. And the connectivity is great. You can kind of just use it. You can kind of put it in your room. You can walk around the house. You won't have to worry about disconnections. It's just like a no nonsense, no hassle, no thinking sort of thing. So while it's hard for me to not recommend the Nuraloops because I do like all that quality it punches, just get these. I think you guys won't have to worry about anything and you won't hate it as much. I mean, I think it's just there's just a relationship you have to build with the Nuraloops. It's like I gotta take my time to understand your quirks and just understand your feelings and understand your emotions so that we can get along. But like with these ones, it's just like boom, stick it in, stick it out. Like it's just like who gives a like I'll see you again in a bit. But like it's just not too much to worry about, and I think that's the big benefit. And again, as much as I glow about that, it's just a click or two down. It's like it's very little difference from an overall perspective of usage and quality. So don't let that deter you from getting the Nuratrues. And again, it punches better than a lot of things. PI5s, XM4s, not MW08s in terms of quality. Like, I mean, those ones from fit perspective, these fit better. But yeah, a lot of the top competitors at like under $300 don't compare to this, and this is 200 bucks. So definitely a good shot for you, especially if you're one of those people that kind of get like headphones for like different reasons. Like, I'm not one of those people. I try to get it all in one. You know, I've been very unsuccessful at finding that. I think the MW08 Sports were the best thing that I've found that kind of gets me all around. But if you don't want to spend 350 bucks, this is kind of similar, where it gives you quality, it gives you convenience, it gives you a pretty decent battery life without any sort of quirks. So definitely punches with those guys that are under 300 bucks easily. So like, would you rather, you can spend $100 on tips or whatever the hell else you want, but you'll save money and you'll get better quality. So yeah, I think that's basically the review. If you guys have any questions about Nura, Nuraloops, Nuraphones, whatever, put it in the comments. I have so much history with these guys, unofficially, obviously, through my own experience as a customer. But I love them. They've been doing a good job about improving their products, and it's really, really fun to see them dabble into new stuff as they go along. So Nura, continue to love you guys. Thank you for making great products. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, put it in the comment section below. As we talk about what's coming up next in terms of this channel, obviously I still owe you guys the 1,000 special. I don't know what to put for that yet, so definitely put your suggestions there, but I have been taking all of you guys' suggestions. So coming up in September, maybe first week of October, but mostly in September, is going to be the Falcon Pros from Noble Audio. It'll be the B&O or Bang & Olufsen EQs, and then probably a comparison between the two, because I think they're very similarly priced. I think the Falcons are $350 and I believe the EQs are $400, so I think that'll be a good comparison between those two. I'll try to throw in the PI7s in there from the samples that I have and do like a triple shot on that one, but I think that'll be probably those 3 videos will be coming up next. I still do owe you guys, what is it? My second take on what the pandas are, as well as you guys gave me a bunch of budget options for earbuds, so those will probably come later. So probably October, November, that will be the focus. But for September and like the very first week of October, my goal is to get through those 3 videos. So stay around, there's plenty more to happen. Again, thank you guys so much for engaging and continually following the channel. It's cool to see you guys in the comments. I'm trying to respond to them as quickly as possible. So sorry if I don't get your comment right away, but sometimes work gets in the way. But I do appreciate that you guys have been doing the normal stuff that you do on a video that you like and love. Comment, share, like, doing all the things on that sort of stuff. And again, to my OGs, thank you guys so much for helping drive the content of this channel. It's giving me a lot of ideas. It's making me finagle sort of return policies a lot. So, but I'll get to all your requests as fast as I can. I just appreciate that you guys are still rocking with me. Anyway, as always, keep in touch, socials, all that sort of stuff. But always appreciate you. Peace.